That's not how you do a shot, Taylor.
Are we streaming? Do you have her cute little faces up?
No, that's not going to happen.
So what do people see?
No, they'll still see us. There's no name or thing underneath our pictures. So they'll see us, but there's no like title underneath our video boxes.
So what do people see?
Just 4 boxes. Yeah.
Okay.
So they'll see Mark eating soup.
Oh, rice with sausages.
Oh, okay.
That's not a thing. Click it. What do you see?
It says, I see you guys. It says, me, Sarah, Richard, Patsy,
Text me. What do you need, Chris?
Bethel, can you text the link to Taylor?
yeah, it says,
So for everyone watching who can clearly see us, and I'm assuming their names are Joe Belico and perhaps Twan and/or Andrew, whose last names I can't pronounce because they're super ethnic. If you guys could bear with us, we are Dodgeball Canada, Scotch Sporting, streaming this whole bitch. But what you're seeing right now is our super embarrassing nerd podcast banner from our Game of Thrones daily recap that we do. And yes, I know I just said Game of Thrones daily recap, and you say it hasn't been on for 10 months. We still somehow figure out a way to broadcast it. We have a way to do it. Figure out a way. In case anyone was wondering, we had prognostications for what's going to be coming up in season 6. Oh, the banner's what we need it to be.
Hey, Mac.
Hi, Mackenzie.
We got someone watching all the way from Victoria, BC.
Is it my
Yeah,
grandmother?
there. Oh.
Probably not. This is probably way past her bedtime, even though it's 6:30.
It's 3 hours behind, but she's probably been asleep for hours because she's like 93. I should call her. I actually haven't called her in a long time. So we're going to start this thing like we can actually see what we're broadcasting. We can't. So, for example, Mark just kind of belched and showed his weird...
Yeah, I was eating.
We are going to post this tomorrow, so have we started recording?
I've hit the record button. You guys are good to go.
Fantastic.
Absolutely fabulous. Well, we can't see ourselves, so this is a very weird situation. It's like you're used to having sex in front of a mirror, and now you stop having sex in front of the mirror. So we're going to launch into Scotch Sporting presents Dodgeball Canada's national pool draw. We have a lot of shit to talk about, and I'm really sorry we're 40 minutes late. I need to get a little bit drunker, so 1 second. Okay. Thank you very much for watching us. Scotch Sporting presents a very special Rabble Press Dodgeball National Pool Draw. We have a bunch of special guests. One of them you're going to recognize. Our usual crew, we have Mark Bunn.
Hey, sorry. I was drinking water.
His mouth is full of mashed potatoes, sausage, and water.
Yeah. It's rice, actually.
Mark Bunn is our resident Scotch Sporting stats guru. You think of something that happened in the world of sports up to 20 years ago, Mark will be able to recall it with photo memory. Mark has also played dodgeball before, so he's going to jump in with his thoughts as sort of an outside perspective. We have the voiceless, faceless Chris Taylor. Chris is going to act as our producer, so please still comment on YouTube, or better yet, go to Twitter, use tweet at Scotch Sporting, use hashtag DC Pool Draw, or go to our Facebook page, Scotch Sporting, or go to Dodgeball Canada, post your comments, say any questions you want, we will answer them. Chris will read them for us. I am also very happy to present in the camera with me, in an official capacity, Mr. Peanut, who is the usual heckler in the background of most Scotch Sporting recordings. He is here in official capacity as 3-time former team captain of Dodgeball Canada, the Canadian national dodgeball team, Dave Cutner.
Hi, everybody.
And I can't see ourselves, so I can't point to him. We have a new guest joining us for the first time, Victor, who is with Dodgeball Canada, the head of player scouting and the development of the sport in Canada. Victor is the coach of dodgeball.
Hey, everybody.
Victor's been around as long as I've been playing the game, so he's probably as old as I am. A pioneer for the sport in terms of turning it into a sport that can coach and taking it out of the schoolyard and out of the goddamn movie that we're going to get to. And
Are we broadcasting on the Ocho?
No.
We will broach this topic later, Mark.
Okay.
I almost want to broach it right now. So one of like dodgeball is, for 3 out of 4 people on this podcast right now, is a huge part of our lives. It is an actual sport with actual skill. There's so much strategy to it. We have people watch it for the first time. Someone watched our team play for the first time yesterday and couldn't believe. She said we moved like ducks in a pond. Like we were just all moving together at the same time, doing the exact same things.
And this was just Tuesday intermediate dodgeball.
Yeah, this was a random. So what do we do? One of the worst things you can say to a legitimate dodgeball player, and I understand how pretentious I sound saying that, is quote the 5 Ds of dodgeball. That's the biggest insult you can say to anyone that legitimately plays dodgeball.
It's a way to stop a conversation with an actual dodgeball player on the spot.
Dip, duck, dive, dip, and so.
Have fun with the rest of your life.
Tiny sidebar here. Listeners of Scotch Sporting will know, but new listeners that we might have right now won't know. I have played dodgeball for 4 or 5 years. Competitively, I'll say I traveled internationally, but I've been to Detroit, so that counts. I play at a pretty highly competitive level. I have never seen that movie.
Wow.
Ever. For me, now as a dodgeballer, this is a point of pride for me that I've never seen this movie. I know all the references. Someone called me Cotton, and I was like, what the fuck? Like, I thought it was a racial slur or something because they happen to be not white.
Right.
And I was like, huh? What'd you call me? And then I was like, oh, dodgeball. So it's a point of pride for me that I haven't seen the movie. But how do we get people to not think of it as a schoolyard sport?
Or a joke.
Or a joke.
I think doing this helps.
Did this where we screwed up, or did this that we're starting right now?
No, that's what I was starting right now. Obviously.
Starting right now.
Yeah, now.
Not the first 45 minutes of shit show that everyone might have been waiting to tune into. It might also help that I'm busting out a $120 scotch that I purchased.
Ooh.
This is special Scotch Sporting scotch just for this episode.
I'm drinking the cheap stuff.
It's not cheap. That was like $80.
Cheaper.
Slightly cheaper. So because we wasted so much time trying to get our shit together in true Scotch Sporting style, why don't we get straight to the pool draw?
Exciting.
So we have 12 men's teams and 10 women's teams. We're going to do the men's pool draw first. What do you have in front of you, Dave?
This is Baseball Canada's official hat from several years ago when I went to a World Baseball Classic game in Toronto.
And in Dave's hat contains the numbers In my hat, which is a Blue Jays hat, because I thought it would be insulting to use a Bruins hat,
Ah, yes.
I have the team names. Dave is going to pull a number, and I'm going to pull a team name. And then Bethel, behind the scenes, our beautiful, wonderful.
Hi, Bethel.
Hi.
What is she with Dodgeball Canada?
Bethel is the vice president of Dodgeball Canada
She's
Wow.
going to be recording everyone's stats, so we
and
will.
the program director.
She's going to be recording all of this, so we'll post the schedule very immediately after this. So our first number.
Team number 10.
Team number 10 will be, oh, I'm so excited we started with this. Team number 10 is going to be the Halifax Explosion.
You can hear this?
Captained by Corey Oikel.
Corey Oikel, a good friend of mine.
So we have two brothers on the team, which is kick-ass. We have my wannabe boyfriend, if he was into girls, Joe Belico, is on this team. So again, listeners to Scotch Sporting will know how much I love the history behind team names.
In Canada.
And I love Canadian history. I'm super passionate about that. But we spend multiple Scotch Sporting broadcasts talking about the history behind NCAA teams and their names and their mascots. The Halifax Explosion, to me, is the most brilliant provincial team name that could ever possibly be named. It was a part of our heritage commercial. It was the guy freezing on the beach, slowly looking behind him. It was a huge part of maritime history and a huge part of Canadian history, and remains one of the biggest nautical disasters in North American history. And you have named your team after it, and I'm so happy you came first. You are team number 10.
All right, the next number to be drawn
I just looked in the hat. I spoiled it for her.
is number 5.
Team number 5 will be Havoc out of Toronto, Ontario. Havoc contains a whole bunch of Team Canada members. Former Jeff Snow played for Team Canada, Mike Laziak, Jason Mergler, Cam Ranikin, Eric Ceruto, Jonah Koplowitz. The only member who has not played for Team Canada is Matt Silvera. So Team Havoc out of Toronto, it will be team number 5.
Next up on the list, team number 4.
Team number 4 will be Fluorescence, also out of Toronto. A quite kick-ass team, also containing 2 former Team Canada members. They will be a force to be reckoned with out of Toronto.
Coming up next, we have team number 6. I believe this is 6 and not 9, so whatever I pull next will be 9.
I did not draw
This
a
is
line
6.
under it. So this is 6. Everyone remember when we pull out 6 again that we already did it. The real team number 6 is Smash Brothers, qualifying first place with Kyle Waddingham, which is his real last name on Facebook. It's Kyle Waddy, with Smash Brothers. Smash Brothers is team 6.
Out of London.
What did I say?
Nothing.
Okay, they're out of London. They just got cool New Jerseys.
All right, next team. Team number 3.
Number 3 will be Hercules, Vancouver Provincial Tryout Team. Team Hercules is comboed with a whole bunch of guys from VDL, which is Vancouver Dodgeball, and a whole bunch of guys from Toronto with a kick-ass team called Northern Touch. So this is going to be a combo West Coast Vancouver Toronto team, which is going to be really freaking awesome. Captained by Victor Liu.
All right, next on the docket, team number 11.
Team number 11 is Alberta Arsenal. And hold on.
Find it.
Oh, God, just a second.
There it is.
There it is. Provincial flag, Team Alberta. So Team Alberta is going to be captained by Chris Berry, who is also a former Team Canada member. I also used to live in Alberta, so that's cool. I spent 3 years in Cold Lake, Alberta, if anyone on this team is from there, which I don't think they are because it's a terrible place and everyone has moved from it. Or I lived in Calgary for 4 years.
Next up, team number 7.
Team number 7, McBoom Strike. This is an individual team featuring the beautiful, the talented, the gorgeous, the staying at my house in a couple weeks, Mackenzie Legacy as their captain. Mackenzie, please don't touch my shit when you're here.
Next up, team number 8.
Team number 8 is going to be Capital Beatdown. And they are from, I'm assuming, Ottawa, home to many fantastic museums. We'll be visiting Ottawa in a couple weeks. I'm really excited about some exhibits that are going to be there, featuring 2 former Team Canada members, including Captain Spencer and Jordan DiCarlo.
All right, coming down to the last couple here. Next is team number 2.
Team number 2 is going to be straight out of, what is that movie? Why am I blanking on it?
Which one?
Ramrod.
Oh,
Super Troopers.
Super Troopers.
Jesus Christ. Coming straight out of Super Troopers is Team Ramrod, featuring folks from Winnipeg, folks from Sarnia, folks from Toronto. This team features our 2 youngest players. We have Bryce Potvin. I hope I am pronouncing his name right, who is 17. Potvin, I know, that's how you pronounce it in Ontario. I'm really sorry to everyone French. Bryce Potvin, he is 17 years old, which is really exciting because a lot of people in Toronto are very old. So we need some youth trying to try out for Team Canada. And Cam from Toronto is 20. So it's amazing to see guys this young being this good.
All right, 3 left. Next one is team number 9 or 6. It's 9.
It's 9. We did this. Team number 9 is qualifying from London, Marvel Alliance. Marvel Alliance is captained by Blair Keating, who is my Facebook friend.
All right, 2 teams left. Next one is team number 1.
Team number 1 is going to be, I don't even want to say their names, Total Dominations. So Mark supports anyone Asian in any sport that we talk about.
Yeah.
He couldn't care about the sport. It could be tennis. And if there's an Asian person, Mark's like, all of my money on them. So Mark, this is
Michael
Total...
Chang.
Exactly.
No, he was one of my favorite players in the 90s.
Great player.
He was really fast.
Total Dominations is out of Toronto. Mark has sung karaoke with them. They qualified out of London, and Total Dominations will be team number 1.
And then last, and technically last because they're team number 12.
From Quebec, and I am not going to do my accent, and I'm fighting it with every fiber of my being. Coming out of Quebec is Team Ball Stars. We got your flag.
Yay!
Yay! So I hope someone wrote it down because we sure as hell didn't. So we're going to be posting what everyone's, how everyone ranked, where everyone in their schedule are. So we're going to take a pause before we get into the women's because we have to set up her hats again partially. I have new numbers for us, honey.
I just took out 12 and 11.
Oh, well, I got 1 through 10. I printed them again. Okay, Dave just threw them on the ground. So I did want to talk about dodgeball. I wanted to talk about maybe a bit of our backgrounds. Victor, people don't know you on the podcast. You are the coach. You coach the Humber Hawks, who are the formidable college champions.
2015 coach of the women's national team.
You 2015 coach of the women's national team. Player development scout. I've known you for a very long time. I don't even know how the hell you got into dodgeball. So if you could start with that, that would be fantastic. How did you get into it? How did you decide to start coaching it?
That's a great question. It's not one that I get often. Let's see. So I probably
Is that
involved.
sarcastic? Is that sarcastic?
Me? No. So
Oh.
that's another thing a lot of people also do know about me is I come across as extremely sarcastic, but it's a little bit of a flaw. Yeah, I got involved about 7-8 years ago. When I was a student actually at Humber, dodgeball, everyone lived and breathed it at the Lakeshore campus. Michael Laziak, a name that we've already talked about before, was a student there, and I met him there, and he told me to come out and check it out. I spent a long time in the balcony kind of watching, taking notes, exchanging those notes with him. In about 2009, the OCAA here in Ontario said, dodgeball's a thing. It's going to be a sport. We're going to have our colleges compete against each other, and Humber was looking for a coach. I came from a volleyball coaching background, and the rest is kind of history. I've continued to be a part of it for the last 8 years.
Did you notice similarities, dodgeball and volleyball?
That's a great question. Outside of being, there's the court aspect of it for sure, and a lot of standard court sizes here in Toronto are usually volleyball court. Not so much. I've always said that I used to be a tennis player growing up, and I've taken a lot of tennis into dodgeball rather than volleyball.
Interesting. So
Although in volleyball, the attack does come from the wing primarily. And in dodgeball, historically speaking, especially here in Canada, we like to execute our plays from the wing as much as possible as well.
do you think internationally they go middle more?
Well, it's funny. Internationally, it's changing. It's evolving at a really rapid pace. It depends. I mean, there's a lot of teams that are very technical on the international stage. If you're letting go from the wing, you're probably more prone to get the counter. So knowledge is power. I'm finding a lot of things shifting back into the middle as well, but I think the wing is still a sweet spot of where you want to try to get that attack going.
Awesome. No, it's interesting you came from volleyball because I mean,
It was a short-lived career, Taylor.
yeah. Well, that's my one sport, and this is even before we were dating, and I'm gonna get to Dave's history. I volleyball is one thing that just doesn't compute in my brain. I'm really good at sports where I have to thwack things, and I'm really good at sports where I have to throw things. So I can do baseball because I hit and catch. I can play floor hockey because I thwack as hard as I can. Dodgeball's been great for me. Volleyball, I don't understand.
There's a thwack element.
Like I can't, but I don't catch the ball. Like my instinct when you hurl it over the net is to catch it. I'm awful at volleyball, and we were vacationing in Mexico. And do you remember when I freaked out on those girls and just stormed off the court?
We were playing recreationally on a beach in Mexico, and people were taking it a little bit too seriously for Taylor.
We were
for recreational vacation beach volleyball.
It's 1:00 in the afternoon. We are at an all-inclusive resort. I'm shithoused, and I just can't say the F word. So I'm drunk and we're playing volleyball, and these girls are taking it so seriously, and I guess I missed a bump or spike or net throw or whatever it is, and they turned around and yelled at me. So it's like,
Taylor just walked away.
okay, bye, and
Yeah.
just walked away. Got it.
Now, imagine the tables were turned and they were playing dodgeball for the first time, and you were on the
Good
court.
point.
If we're on a court and it's a legitimate game, I'm getting upset. If we are at an all-inclusive resort, no rules exist. At all-inclusive resorts, I walked by a cabana and I grabbed a steak with my bare hands and continued walking on the walk we were going on.
Shamefully witnessed.
Rules don't exist at all-inclusives. Anyways, we have a friend of the podcast here, Dave Kuttner. Usually Mr. Peanut, usually just chirping me and insulting me and telling me how wrong I am.
All the time.
All the time. Dave is the 3-time captain of Team Canada, 2-time gold medalist. We're not going to talk about the 3rd time. Dave, tell us about captaining Team Canada, and what I want to know is your adventures that you've had as a result of dodgeball.
Sure. Dodgeball has been a big part of my life, and especially over the last 3 years as Canada has made its presence on the international stage. It pains me not to be trying out this year. As an absolute coincidence, my sister decided to get engaged this year, and her wedding date is the same weekend as the World Dodgeball Championships in Melbourne.
What is selfish?
I know, but as I've always said, through everything in life, family comes first.
We won't do that, right?
No, we'll pick any subsequent dates revolving around the Dodgeball international schedule.
Look what I just trapped him into. Keep
I know.
going.
Damn it, it's being recorded. So I've had the absolute honor, privilege, and pleasure of traveling, playing with Team Canada for the last 3 years. We've had some very interesting experiences, not just on the court, but off the court in terms of traveling. 2 years ago, before we were in Hong Kong for the World Championships, myself and a couple teammates decided to go to Bali first to travel around. And when in Rome, or when in Bali for this instance, we decided to go to a monkey sanctuary. And we had some pretty interesting experiences as monkeys were stealing our snacks and pickpocketing. We had one instance where a monkey was in a tree on the other side of the river. I took a banana out of my backpack to try and lure the monkey nearby because I love monkeys. The monkey traveled all the way down the tree, made its way across the river, across several other trees, onto my shoulder, grabbed the banana, looked at it, peeled it, and threw it on the ground because it wasn't ripe enough for said monkey. The monkey was not happy with me. It then proceeded to jump back on my back, take the water bottle out of my backpack, and throw it in the river.
Amazing.
I mean, it's experiences like that that I wouldn't have had without being part of Team Canada, without having the ability to travel internationally and experience the camaraderie of the teamwork and traveling with my teammates and people that I now consider my brothers.
Because you don't have brothers.
Because I don't have brothers. I have 2 younger sisters.
One who's getting
who I
married.
love dearly and am giving up an opportunity to potentially try for a 4th round with Team Canada because she decided to get married that weekend.
Just checking in with our faceless producer. What's the question stitch there, Chris? You mean we have dozens of questions and you just picked one, right? So I'm going to jump in really quickly and just give background for people that might not know. Last year it was tryouts more. It was individual tryouts. There was a main tryout based in Toronto. And then you could submit video and basically an essay, answer a questionnaire on why you should be Team Canada. Team Canada was picked from that.
This was also through a different organization at the time.
Yeah, this year it's Dodgeball Canada hosting, and they're doing it as a tournament. And Dave and Victor can speak more. As it there were provincial tryouts in every province that was participating. They're either sending teams as a whole or individuals from their provinces. And then they're going to be competing April 30th as to be crowned national champions. And then from this tournament, Team Canada is going to be chosen. So Dave's captain. Victor was a coach last year. What do you think the differences are in choosing Team Canada?
Victor, do you want to take the lead on this?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've definitely heard the feedback we received over the years. I think that's the most important thing. We heard that people wanted an opportunity to be seen more, and to be honest with you, we couldn't agree more. The format that we have right now essentially is not only allowing us to watch players more often, we're also able to see players in their comfort zone. We're able to see them in different games, different matches, playing with the people they know in some cases. In other cases, you know, if you're having a bad first 2 hours, you can rebound from it. So this year's process, we're excited about it. We know it's not going to be perfect. We know that there's going to be things we need to improve next year, but we really do feel confident with this process. I know I feel very confident, and I know our selection committee is going to feel very confident in knowing that we're going to have about 7 to 8 solid hours to watch these players play and do what they do best on the court and showcase their strengths and their weaknesses. And we're going to be able to make a really informed decision this year.
Yeah, it's an interesting opportunity that we haven't had in the past, because this year, not only are you trying out in front of the selection committee, but you're also trying out against the other top competition from around the country. And that's been kind of one of the big feedbacks that we've gotten in the past, is that how do you determine somebody's skill based off of an individual qualification?
Well,
everyone throws hard, everyone catches well, but can you do it against the other top competition? And that's really what this national championship tournament is going to be able to showcase.
Well, this is something maybe Mark can speak to as a sports nerd. Is there any international team-based sport, Olympics, like FIFA, whatever, that does individual tryouts?
Filmed, sent through video submission.
Or if you happen to be able to make it to the Toronto tryout?
None that I can think of, because a lot of the Olympics and team sports, it's all, you pick a team, you go try at this event, and whoever wins that tournament becomes a representation of that team, right?
Yeah. And that's the way that a country like Malaysia has always qualified their world dodgeball team. They host a national tournament, and the winning team is the representative team of Malaysia. They don't have individual components or pieces or players that are amalgamated into Team Malaysia. They have a national tournament where the winning team is Team Malaysia for the next 12 months.
And it's tough because dodgeball is such a team sport. It's not really an individual sport. Whereas, say, baseball, I guess you can send an audition tape, I guess, because it's individual performances against each other. But with dodgeball, it's more of a team aspect there.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm gonna like if I have an opportunity to submit a video, I work in TV. I'm gonna be sending you the greatest. I'm not very good, but I'm gonna send you the greatest highlight reel humanly possible of the random diving catches that I happened to make only because someone else died and I was literally the only person to possibly make this catch. So that's awesome. Hey Chris, anything else? Because if not, we're jumping to the ladies. We're
Bethel,
gonna
did we have anything from Facebook? Fantastic.
So we're gonna do the ladies pool draw, and then we were gonna get into a very, very deep discussion about dodgeball, which we had very heatedly before we started broadcasting. So hopefully we all remember what we said, and we're not too drunk that we can't remember it anymore. So
One of us isn't.
no, I did some shots on camera. So we have 10. I can't even. So we have 10 women's teams. So we're going to be doing the draw for women's teams. We have our very same hats. I have the team names in here. Dave has the numbers.
1 through 10 this time, not 1 through 12. All right, so we're going to kick off the women's pool draw with team number 3.
Team number 3 is Black Ball Dewin.
Team Black Ball from Quebec.
Black Baldwin. I'm saying you're the Black Baldwins. You're from Quebec. Hold on.
Yay.
Na, 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 na. So this is the. I know they don't have a national anthem. Oh, it's Black Widow plus Alec Baldwin. So they are Team Black Baldwin. That's why that is hilarious. You have a pun. You automatically win the tournament.
That's not official.
Call the show off.
No, that's
April 30th is canceled.
The second team coming out of spot number 5.
Number 5 from West Coast is the Vancouver Provincial Tryout Team, captained by Jessica Thompson, former Toronto resident, has moved out to Vancouver. This team also contains 2 VDL members, Priscilla Lee and Lauren Camachi. I'm going to give a big shout out to the West Coast, Vancouver Dodgeball, and Victoria Dodgeball. I don't know Victoria Dodgeball's acronym off the top of my head. My grandmother lives in Victoria, who we talked about at the beginning of the podcast, who is still alive, and I do need to call her. I visit Victoria all the time, played dodgeball with these guys. We warmed up with little balls, and it was the greatest time of my life because I felt like a fucking all-star. Damn it, I said the F word.
This was your rule.
I know.
It was my rule.
It was Bethel's rule.
It was Bethel's rule.
So huge shout out to the West Coast. They have Edmonton, April Ferentz on their team. I wonder if she's related to Andrew Ferentz, who plays hockey for Edmonton. Please, April Ferentz, if you're watching this, DM me if you're related to Andrew Ferentz. And then we have 2 people from Toronto, including a Team Canada member, former Savannah Burton. And then we have Team Winnipeg, Shark Week, rounding out the Vancouver team.
Next up,
Seriously, if you're related to Andrew Ferentz, you're going to need to DM me after this. You can hit me up at Scotch Sporting and I'll read it.
next up, team number 2.
Team number 2 is the Dodgeaholics, qualifying out of London in first place, captained by Joanna White. They also have a former Team Canada member on their team in the form of Destiny Sexsmith. A formidable team qualifying first place out of London.
Next up, team number 10.
Team number 10 is Girl Scout Dropouts, captained by Megan Bai. Individual invitations for this team, but a whole bunch of solid ladies on this team.
All right.
Also, a whole bunch of Winnipeg Shark Weeks. Hold on, I have the Manitoba flag and we haven't shown it yet.
There it is.
Yeah! Thank you for qualifying, Manitoba.
All right. Up next, team number, let's call this one 9.
Okay, we're
Team number 9.
we're doing the same number thing, Mark. It is up to you to let us know that we've used 9 already when we accidentally pull 9 again.
Next one will be a 6.
Team number 9, qualifying out of Ottawa in first place, we have the Beaver Tails. Sidebar
Nope.
about beaver tails.
No.
I can't. So Dave gets really upset with me because I think the best beaver tail is the garlic butter and cheese.
Nope. It's got to be sweet.
No. You can find one savory beaver tail, and it is the one stand in the Byward Market in Ottawa.
Yep.
So go Team Beaver Tail. You contain 3 former Team Canada members, including Lynn Kirkpatrick, has been on Team Canada for the last 3 years. And you have Amelie Byam and Jocelyn Brewer, both of whom are 2-time Team Canada members. Team Beaver Tail. Just a second.
Next
I'm
one.
ready.
Team number 8.
Team number 8 will be the Scotia Sirens out of Nova Scotia.
Okay. Next up, I guess this one is team number 6.
We said 9 before.
9 was used already, so this will be 6.
Team number 6 is the Alberta Arsenal from the Edmonton Provincial Tryout, captained by Lindsay Bolton. That's all. I talked about how I used to live in Alberta.
No stories or analogies now?
Well, I think Edmonton, qualified out of Edmonton, and Edmonton and Calgary had a huge rivalry. And my loyalties are to Calgary, and I apologize. I'm a huge St. Peter's fan. Yeah, sorry. Sorry, Eskimos. Although, congrats on the Grey Cup this year. Your quarterback is very attractive.
3 left. Next one, team number 4.
Team number 4 will be
4.
qualifying in first place out of Toronto. We have the She-Bears. This team has 3 former Team Canada members, including Captain Jen Ritchie. 3-time team member, Shauna Rowe? 3-time team.
Just 2.
2.
Just 2, and then Beth was also 2.
Correct.
3.
They all took a year off for Hong Kong. Yeah, New Zealand and Las Vegas. All right, 2 left. Team number 7.
Team number 7 is the Blue Barbarians.
Nope.
Try again.
Hold on.
Ballerinas.
This is why I need my glasses, so Mark can't be the only nerd. We have the Blue Ballerinas, captained by Megan McHugh, also containing 2 lovely ladies from Winnipeg Sharkweed. Ballerinas. Oh, very funny.
Yeah. We will address ball-related team names coming up.
Yes. Nothing on you, Blue Ballerinas. We're going to talk about this soon.
And leaving for last, and in this place, team number 1.
Team number 1, qualifying out of Toronto, containing 2 former Team Canada members, is the Misfits, captained by former Hong Kong Team Canada member Katie Morrison. There is your pool draw, ladies and gentlemen. Please, please, please do not. Wow, we're getting chirped in Slack about my beaver tail deliciousness. So, Tyler, if you're listening, I need you to tell your wife that she's wrong. So, we are going to... Let's just go straight to ball puns now that we have
Yep.
our...
Segue.
we have our segue. Another thing I hate as a wannabe comedian and a dodgeball player is I have a huge problem with ball puns.
Dodgeball-related team names involving the word ball, for those whose minds are in the gutter.
So there's one team name that I need banned forever, and that is Balls Deep.
Mm-hmm.
I also kind of want Balzania and Balzinga, also banned forever. I would accept ball puns if you are referring to someone who is bald. So if you were
Shout out Jeff Snow.
So if you were the Bald Eagles, for example, if you spelled it like you were going bald, this is what I want. So I think in terms of getting things back legitimately, I think if we ban all ball puns, unless you DM me directly, and I will happily approve them for you.
The Blue Ballerinas as a unique name, never being heard before, is being accepted this time around.
Clearly, I couldn't pronounce it, so Blue Ballerinas is fine. If you are Blue Balls, you're banned.
It's a very thin line.
Throw puns are also still accepted, with the exception of throw jobs. You are also not allowed to be a team anymore. Game of Thrones aren't allowed to be a team because I thought of that 3 years ago, and we did terribly in our Sunday league.
Some use Game of Throws.
No, Game of Thrones is better, but you spell it the other way.
I understand.
Yeah, we did awful. We were really, really bad. I think that might have been when you still played Sundays.
A long time ago.
Yeah, we played with Fishbane, who never showed up. So, one of the things I wanted to debate about, hopefully people are still listening. Chris, do we have any questions? Oh,
Do we have Chris? No.
Oh.
Guys, this is a chance to interact, to ask questions, whether it be about the draw, the pool, process, any personal questions for Mark or Victor, not me or Taylor. Any questions that you might have at all, you can go through the YouTube page, you can go through Twitter, you can go through Facebook. There's plenty of ways to interact with us. We are taking any and all questions, and if you don't have any, you're going to have to listen to us talk about what we want to talk about.
Yeah, use the Twitter hashtag DC Pool Draw. We will answer all your questions. If you want to talk about beaver tails, as some people on our podcast do, who are tweeting me separately, you are all wrong. It's garlic butter and cheese. Anyways, also, yeah.
I've never had any, so I'll have to
Gross.
try it.
Oh, Mark, you love terrible food.
I know, right?
Oh, amazing. So I want to jump to stats because we were all getting really passionate about this before our show went a little shitty and then we were 45 minutes late. So one of the things I think is missing from Dodgeball legitimacy, from moving us to the forefront, and I don't know if that's a drink for saying us for Dodgeball. We have a thing on the podcast. If you say we or us referring to a sports team that you cheer for, that's a drink.
If you're from Toronto and you're cheering for the Blue Jays and you're talking about how well we did today,
That's a drink.
that's a drink.
If you're a fan of the Bruins, which I am, and you say we missed the playoffs because we are fucking garbage and we need to cut
F-bomb.
Zdeno. We need to cut Zdeno Chara. That's a drink. We do need to cut Zdeno Chara. Anywho, so stats with Dodgeball, taking us from schoolyard movie jokes to the forefront. I think one of the things that is missing is stats, and that stats related to the game. I think we need some kind of box score. Now, I've seen stats. I sent around Team Canada Hong Kong stats. I can show you on paper because someone reviewed Mike Laziak. He reviewed hours of, he reviewed this footage over and over again to come up with these stats. And I can tell you that Jeff Snow had the best kills to death ratio. He had the best blocks to sweeps ratio. I need a way to tell you. So Dave is sitting behind me wearing 2 medals, 3-time captain. I need a piece of paper to point to the layperson to tell you why Dave is wearing 3 medals.
2. I'm only wearing 2. I'm not wearing 1 from last year. I'm not happy about it.
So Mark, you've played dodgeball before.
Yes.
You've studied the stats that I sent around.
Mm-hmm.
What would you look for in the box score of dodgeball?
First of all, I mean, kills is like the obvious one to put because it shows you, the goal is to knock out the other team anyway. So kills is
Yeah,
main
it's
stat for
equivalent
that.
to hockey's goals or basketball's points.
Yeah. So I would definitely include that. Defensively, dodges might be another good one to use. Because on offense, kills is what gives you the best, I guess, stat. Whereas on defense, I think dodge will give you the best stat on that. Maybe blocks as well, but dodges alone is
As a
good
quick
to use.
tangent, though, there's a bit of a subjectivity to that. What's the
Mhm.
difference between somebody dodging one and the thrower just missing?
I'm notorious for jumping when the ball is nowhere near me.
Right.
Is that a dodge? That's not a
No.
dodge. So, and we were talking about this before we started recording.
And maybe Victor can sound in on this as well.
We need something that you can track yourself.
So I think it's an excellent point that you're bringing up, and it's funny because it's a pilot program that we're planning on launching with the collegiate team that I coach, and that's essentially. So we've talked about some of the right stats that we want to be tracking. We want to be tracking kills. We want to be tracking catches. We want to be tracking dodging, and then overall and blocking on all of those things. And overall, I think what's missing is the on-court effectiveness, because you can be on a court for 5 minutes, but what you're actually doing on the court at the end of the day matters the most. If you've got someone who's been on there for 60 seconds and they've got two kills, they've blocked 2 balls, they've dodged a ball, and they've made a catch, that is far more significant than the player who's been on the court for 6 minutes who has 2 catches. So one pilot project that we're working on is essentially equipping players with a stopwatch, and they'll keep it in their pocket. And then while they're playing in a scrimmage or playing in a game, they're kind of making mental note of all that stuff, of all the catches they're making, of the kills they're making, the blocks they're making. And I know it's a lot to remember, but hear me out. Once they've been eliminated from gameplay, stop the stopwatch, go to your chart, make the appropriate ticks in the appropriate columns, and from there you're able to get an accurate representation of what you've been able to produce on the court. Now, the caveat to that, as I've said before, is making sure you're playing within the system and making sure you're playing within your strategy, because you don't want players to go out there and they're essentially doing everything they can to inflate their numbers. That's bad. And that's not something we want to be seeing. But that's one way I think where players can be tracking their own kind of performance. And of course, numbers are going to be different for the role that you play on your team.
Yep.
But I think it's an interesting way of measuring what you're able to accomplish on the court.
But I guess, yeah, that's the same with every sport. And I mean, my 2 examples are with floor hockey, and the one is going for your own statistic. I had a guy, because I'm just a girl, like he'd deke around me rather than pass to me, and it'd be when I was standing by the net, because he wanted that goal.
Right.
So this was when we were keeping our own individual stats, and I'd be standing ready with my stick on the ground to fire it on the goalie, and he would deke around me so he could try it for himself.
Or for a more legitimate example, something like baseball, where you have home runs and RBIs, doesn't always tell the story if those guys are batting 220, 230. You have guys who are batting 330, 340 who are going to win batting titles, but don't always knock someone in or hit a home run, but they set the table for the way the rest of the inning is going to set up.
But it needs to start with that, like it needs to start with those base questions. Like baseball has the sabermetrics and the video replay and the I hit better against a left-hander in the middle of the night statistics that come later after you've been around 100 years. And hockey has the stats that you also have by video review, but what is the really quick layperson amateur level dodgeball statistics that we can keep in our minds ourselves, or have a friend? We were talking about earlier, we had a friend that came and watched the game yesterday. What could she do just standing there ticking in a box that I could show you afterwards? Hey, Dave had a great game, Taylor didn't because I'm terrible. Like, what could you look at on a stat sheet to show us that?
The answer might be just as simple as kills and catches.
I think
and that might
exactly.
be that might be.
I think you know what
sitting and
I think. The basic answer I think comes down to kills and catches. It reminds me a little bit of hockey, where Corsi kind of became the big thing in the last few years, right? Like you can have your simple stats and you can have your basic stats, and then the more evolved stuff, your Corsi score, how long you got the puck on your stick, all of those things I think are a little bit more advanced, and I think they're a true telling of what you're able to do on the court. But I think if the question is amateur, I would argue that, of course, it's going to be kills, it's going to be catches. Once you start measuring blocking, I think you need to start advancing those statistics, because blocking is a bigger scheme of what you're trying to measure, and I think that comes into other things. But yeah, to your point, yeah, I agree with you. I think it's kills, I think it's catches.
As the sport evolves and people start keeping track of stats and becoming dodgeball statisticians, then we can start to expand the scope of what is being tracked, whether it be dodges, blocks, assisted kills, what have you. Then we'll start to, and that will lead into more of this sabermetrics, how many kills per minute on the court, your kills per death statistics. But it has to start at the basic elements, and that being kills and catches, leading on to the other sweeps and blocks and what have you.
Yeah.
Yes, Chris?
Thank you. Thank you, Joanna. Question. Hi.
Ooh, the hot new rookies.
Ooh, that's a great question. It's tough to answer at this time. Victor leading the scouting and the player development and being on the selection committee. That's a tough question because going into this, we have to have complete subjectivity. We can't have people that are favored, who are on the rise, who are veterans who expect to make a spot. Everyone has to earn their spot every year, and that's a mentality that we have to go in with. So while there are young people who are on the rise, it doesn't necessarily lead to this person is somebody that we're going to watch more closely than somebody who's been playing for 10 years.
Yeah.
I think you agree?
I mean, I agree with you, Dave. It's a question we've seen quite often, and the truth of the matter is, and it comes from the most genuine place. We look at things as if there's 8 spots on Team Canada, both men's and women's, and they're up for grabs for everyone. Yes, have we seen exciting stuff from people thus far? Absolutely, but it's going to come down to April 30th. And to tie in a little bit of another question there, Chris, I know we talked a little bit about the basic skills that we've mentioned, but I can't stress enough the importance on the little things, the things that go above and beyond the catching and the throwing. Not everybody gets to play a primary throwing role on a team. Not everybody gets to have those moments at the attack line. So we really are looking for the versatility. We're looking for the intangibles that really set a player apart. So again, yeah, to Natasha's point, there are a lot of new faces that people are going to meet on April 30th, and I think that's the broader concept of Dodgeball Canada. It's building community. It's bridging those communities together. So Natasha, I'm sure you're going to be able to answer that question after April 30th on who some of those people should be watched.
Well, and this is a fun segue, and I hope to hear from Mark a little bit too. And I do understand the irony because we are talking about a team with a men's division and a women's division, or a tournament. I burn my bra constantly on this podcast. One of the things I talk about all the time is women in sports, and I make jokes about it constantly because our roles are usually on the sidelines as the babe reporter. And I am a huge, huge, huge supporter of women in sports because I see no reason why we can't be analysts, why we can't be the insiders, all that stuff. One of the reasons I love dodgeball, one of the many, many reasons, is because at its truest form, it is co-ed. And it is the only sport I have played or that I know about that at its highest competitive level is co-ed. The top teams from my microscopic Toronto world that I think about when I think of tournament teams are POW, are Crunch, are the former Fluorescence, it's Total Nominations. Everyone I've named is co-ed. And
that's a Toronto subsection. There are other very
talented teams
across Canada.
I just said my absolute, admittedly microscopic Toronto world. These are co-ed teams, and when you get into higher levels of amateur baseball, higher levels of amateur hockey, you can't find them co-ed. Dodgeball is. And I think it is the sport, and the only one I can ever think of that is close is curling in terms of men and women play on exactly equal footing.
Same size equipment, same size court or rink or what have you. Soccer is the other example.
In hockey, you're not allowed to hit as a girl. In softball, it's a completely different game to men. It's softball versus baseball. In basketball, the nets are lower. In golf, they make us hit the ball a little bit closer because heaven forbid we swing a bit harder.
In hockey, there's no hitting.
Oh, yeah, I said that one.
Okay.
So I just well, how do you guys feel that dodgeball is the truly co-ed sport? And granted, pretending I could catch, I can catch a ball the exact same way Dave can.
And it still counts for the same result on the court.
I can dodge a ball with the exact same accuracy that Dave can. there's no advantage to shut up. You're better than me. Let's say I'm someone else, not me. My dodging ability, there's no bearing on my physicality as a woman. So I want to know our thoughts on this as a completely equal level men and women playing field.
I guess I can start, and maybe we can kind of weigh in separately. Having played men's division, co-ed division, and obviously watching a ton of women's division, now on the international stage by WDBF rules, the women's court is a little bit smaller than the men's court is. So there is a caveat to that the field of play is different men's and women's. Now, from a co-ed standpoint, I agree 100% with Taylor. It's not that women have certain rules and men have certain rules. It's everyone plays parts on a dodgeball court, and it's the fluidity at which the game is played. Is that maybe somebody has role A as a gunner on the right side, but as soon as they're out, somebody else has to fill that spot, whether it be a male or a female. It doesn't matter. Everyone has different elements and strengths and weaknesses and contributes different factors to a team aspect. And that's the beauty of dodgeball, is that it's not the best player that wins a game all the time. It's the fact that the best team usually wins. And the best team dynamics are made up of varying components of male, female skills and attributes.
Yeah.
Victor, from a coaching standpoint,
Yeah, you
anything
coach
to
the
add?
women's team.
Yeah, I mean, women's dodgeball obviously has a very close spot to my heart. I got my international gig starting with women's dodgeball, and I wouldn't trade it for the world. I think with women's dodgeball is evolving at a rapid pace, at a tremendous rate. I think the elephant in the room has been, and I agree with Dave, it is the team aspect. Typically, when co-ed teams are built, and this is again what I have only seen in my experience in the last 8 years. They're obviously, because of the rule has always been 4 men on court, 2 women on court. You have a lot more males on a court and a lot more females on a court. And when the sport really started evolving at an early stage, women, and again, there are exceptions to it, and I've seen many exceptions before, women have always played a primarily defensive role on a co-ed team because it was the easier thing to teach. I think catching is a skill that a lot more people are used to learning because it's a motor skill you learn at a very young age. So to develop it at a later age, a lot easier to acquire that.
It's also a different mindset. It's training someone to have the mindset to look for a catch as opposed to reacting to one.
I was going to say, from the perspective as shocker, I'm a woman, that that doesn't bother me, and that's never bothered me. That's my role in dodgeball. And I guess, I mean, like I said, in my floor hockey, I've had guys deke around me because they didn't think I could score. In baseball, I've had pitchers kind of gently lob it to me. I've played outfield and have someone challenge my arm because, but on a dodgeball court, being the sweeper or being the catcher, or being the counter person never bothers me. Like, there's no such thing as a girl role. It's just because that role exists on men's teams too. And on all women's team, you have women's that are the arms, you have women's that are the sweepers. This isn't your role because you're a woman. This is just your role.
100%. I completely agree with you. The roles are transferable, and I think that's the beauty of it. And someone's got to play the role. At the end of the day, to Dave's point, there are 6 players on the court, and you know what? There's only 2 primary thrower roles to start something off. So I completely agree with you. I think the women's game is evolving at a rapid pace. I really truly have seen it transform in the last few years. Even seeing a lot of the ladies out on the West Coast and the East Coast. Even just seeing their footage over the years, I'm seeing a lot of great development out there. I'm seeing a lot more ladies really stepping up and challenging themselves to play new roles and evolving those skill sets. And I think that it's going to be a phenomenal thing on April 30th to see all of the ladies across Canada come together and really showcase what they've been working on. Because I can tell you, I think women's dodgeball in Canada is growing. It's on the rise, and I'm really excited to be part of the journey this year.
If I was wearing a bra right now, I would be whipping it off and burning it.
That's the fact she is not.
So we have two questions. One of them, I think, is about how many people we have on the 30th. So for Victor, I'm just going to read them because no one can hear Chris. It's Scotch boarding. We don't have our shit together. So how many players are you guys looking to have on the team, and how many alternates will there be?
That's a great question. Historically speaking, Team Canada's always been built 8 men, 8 women on each team. I can't see us moving away from that this year. We definitely don't want to put ourselves in any sort of box, but I think we're going to be working towards the 8. In terms of alternates, the truth be told, I don't think we're going to have a cap-off number on alternates. We're going to take as many alternates that deserve a spot to eventually want to fill in a role that we think is fit. Because you know what, and I've said this before and I'll say it again, I think less about the 16 players that'll make Team Canada, and I spend a lot more time thinking about those who won't. So those spots on the alternate team are going to be very important, not just for the team, but for myself personally. So I'm not going to cap off the number of alternates we're going to be taking on this year's team.
Yeah, and just to add to that, in the past, both the men's team and the women's team have experienced injuries, whether training or practice or leading up. So having alternates, whether it be 1, 2, 3, 12, whatever the number is an essential part of building a team, because there are going to be circumstances that are unavoidable, whether it be an injury, whether it be a family crisis, or whether it be a financial issue with going halfway around the world. Speaking from playing on Team Canada in the past, we've always had a couple alternates, and in Hong Kong, we had 2 alternates who traveled with us with the mindset that they were going to support the team in practice and scouting and whatever way that they could. Now, traveling all the way to Hong Kong without expecting to go into a game is a huge financial and emotional commitment. We were very fortunate in the way that we played in Hong Kong that we were able to get our alternates into some games, because technically they were part of Team Canada. They were on the official roster, but they did travel half around the world without the expectation of playing. And in Las Vegas last year, the alternates did not make the trip with us, and therefore did not play. In New Zealand 3 years ago, alternates did not make the trip with us and did not play. But in Hong Kong, we had 2 alternates who both decided to come, who both did excellent jobs of scouting and preparing the teams, and as a result, put the team in a position where we were able to get them into games and playing. So while, as Victor said, while there are 8 men and 8 women officially on Team Canada, the roster is made up of a much bigger dodgeball community.
Yeah.
Amazing. We have another question getting back to what we were talking about before. This is directly to me, but obviously everyone can answer. Do you see a team of women throwers and male sweepers?
Thank you, Natasha Zabchuk, for the question.
And absolutely. Because I think, again, that's the beauty of the size of the dodgeball courts is, again, and my own body, and people, again, who've listened to this podcast before, and please go back and download all of our episodes, I fully acknowledge that no matter how hard I try, I will never be able to throw as hard as Dave, for example, or I'll never be, or the same distance. I fully understand that. I understand the physical limitations of my body as just a girl. But with dodgeball, with the size of the court, I can throw it just as hard as the guys a lot of the time. And if someone is at the line and I'm also at the line, I can throw just as hard as them. And I can throw just as accurately as them. And there's strategy to my throws sometimes. I naturally throw really high. And I apologize for anyone I've drilled in the face because it's a lot of people. Now, Dave knows that about me. When we play together, he'll throw low because he knows mine's sailing, they're reaching for mine. So I think, yeah, women's throwers and men's sweepers, I think, could absolutely be a team. Because, like I said earlier, I don't think those roles are defined by gender. I think those roles are just based on what skills you happen to have.
It's also a pretty big misconception in the sport of dodgeball that the most powerful thrower is the best player, and that's not the case at all. It's a matter of how accurate you are. You can throw 100 miles an hour, but if you're throwing up against the best catcher and you're throwing right at his chest or her chest, then most of the time these catchers are going to outwit your power throw. So just because you throw hard doesn't make you a more skilled dodgeball player. It's where that power throw is going. If you're sniping somebody in the knee or you're making them reach on a throw, if you're coming in 10, 15 miles an hour slower, you can still get just as many people out as somebody throwing harder than you are.
My greatest catch was by, and I won't name them, one of the known hardest throwers in Toronto dodgeball. And they happened to throw at the exact right spot in my thighs that I'm real good at squeezing super tight. Those jokes will come later. And I caught them midair between my thighs. And was it skill? No. But it happened to be a dead straight throw. And I just happened to clack my big old thighs together at the exact right moment. And I caught their throw. So you can throw as hard as you absolutely want to. If it's straight, someone's going to catch you. I don't know. So we had a question, a direct message straight to me, just speaking about women in dodgeball is super quick because I don't know is how big dodgeball has come in the LGBT community, which is amazing, and it has. And again, I can't speak to other provinces, but I can speak to Ontario and Toronto specifically. And the inclusiveness of dodgeball, and I'm sure we all could talk about this for an hour with tears streaming down our eyes, but the inclusiveness of a sport like dodgeball, and maybe because it isn't mainstream, that there is the knowledge that anyone can play it and anyone can be good because there is such a variety of skill sets.
It also goes against the general misconception of dodgeball being a bully sport. And that's something that I think has been a bit of a factor in holding the sport back in terms of gaining interest on the general population level, is the fact that people think it's a bully sport, but it's not. It's actually the opposite. It's the fact that it's a very inclusive sport that doesn't designate in terms of sexes or sexual orientation or skill level. It's the fact that it's a very social sport and people take it as seriously as they want to, and there's opportunities for everyone to play regardless of any variable.
And total side rant again, and again, I've played a lot of sports. I think Dave's played a lot of sports. Mark's played a lot of sports. Has anyone got out for drinks or gotten together afterwards or come to everyone's birthday parties the way we all do?
No, the dodgeball community it's very tight-knit, and that's one of the great draws, and I think one of the strengths that the sport of dodgeball has in terms of its aspirations for moving forward, not just as a hobby and a recreational game, but as a legitimate sport.
We have another question. Did the alternate who came and played with you guys in Hong Kong get a medal?
They did. They received gold medals. They were, as I said, the alternates who made the trip were part of the official Team Canada roster, and subsequently received gold medals with the team.
Another question for you guys. For the panel, and I think it's more for Victor and Dave. How important is a player's reputation in terms of their skill? I guess we can all speak to that. And will the selection committee be basing? Will that be based on all factors or just who plays well on the 30th?
Thanks, Mike, for that question. That's a great question.
Dave and I, from a layperson, because not a layperson, but I am not involved in the selection committee at all. I went to the Toronto tryouts, though, and I saw people who I knew were good might not have had the best tryout. And I asked Dave the same question. Like, if you knew Mark Bunn didn't have the greatest tryout, but you knew him to be a very skilled player, how much is that affecting any kind of decision-making?
Well, as the head of the scouting and the team selection committee, Victor, I think this is a great question for you to answer. And this might not be a question that we can answer right now up front, but might be addressed closer to the April 30th trial. But if you want to kind of lead away on this, I think we're all ears. I think it's a great question.
Yeah, I think it's a great question. And I think the question is reputation of a player. And I think that can be answered in a twofold sort of way. So When we talk about reputation, I know we're talking about skill, but I also feel that I'm obligated to also mention that, and I've said this in the past, we're looking for good people. I know it sounds cliche. I know Mike Babcock said it when he became the head coach of the Toronto Maple Leafs and said, first and foremost, we're looking for good people to represent the Toronto Maple Leafs.
And
I'm
yet
sure
Nazem Kadri is still on the team.
Signed the
I'm
contract
sure our
extension
folks
less.
in Winnipeg, Edmonton, Calgary, Vancouver, and Montreal, and all of them are cringing right now, but that couldn't be more true here. We're looking for good people. We're looking for character people. We're looking for players and athletes who truly embody the qualities of what it means to be a member of Dodgeball Canada.
As I've said in the past, you're not just representing your country on the court, but you're doing it off the court as well.
Yes.
And so it's not just a matter of the skill that you hold, but it's a matter of the skill in which you hold yourself, and which you compose yourself, and you represent that name that's on the front of your jersey, that big Canada that's emblazoned on your chest. How you show that not just on the court, but off the court as well.
And yeah, absolutely. I agree with you, Dave. And I think the second part of that is, you know what? The truth is your reputation in terms of skill. Yeah, I think that's going to be a factor. We've built a selection committee this year that truly represents the representation that's coming to this tryout. We've got one member per representing province that's going to be there. I think that the work that players do outside of the gym, the work that they do outside of April 30th should be a factor, and it should be recognized. April 30th will have a lot of weight. It doesn't come down to a number or a percentage. It will have a lot of weight. But you know what? I've always said this before. Putting your first 3 players on a team, that's the easy part. It's building the bottom half of a team that there's more there. That's the hardest part. There's so many options, and there's going to be a lot of things that go into the weighting process. And as I've said, we've got a selection committee this year that is truly going to represent the best interests of the players that they know. They're not there to advocate for their community per se. They're there to give what they know. They're there to download the information they have, the experience that they have, to the selection committee for us to make a truly informed decision, because that at the end of the day is far more important. So yeah, I think it's a great question, but I definitely say have faith in the selection committee. We've got enough knowledge and representation across this country to make a great informed decision of who those 8 players are going to be on the women's and men's team.
Amazing. And I don't know if we have any more questions from if Chris can jump on for 2 seconds, although we won't hear him. No, so we will probably attempt to wrap it up. Obviously, please still tweet at Scotch Sporting, use the hashtag DC Pool Draw, post on Dodgeball Canada, post on Scotch Sporting. We'll get to your questions, and by we I mean specifically me, and I'm gonna just take this train right off the rails and say everything that isn't sanctioned by Dodgeball Canada. I think the only thing, like, what's the next step for Canada in making us an absolute dodgeball powerhouse?
Is that for me or for Dave?
2 gold medals behind us. I'd lift his shirt up and show you his glorious chest hair, but I don't know if he's down for that.
No, that will not be happening tonight. But on a more serious note, to address your question, Canada has been a dodgeball powerhouse. And I mean, last year, not necessarily standing. And I mean, maybe I'm speaking a little bit more on the men's side than the women's side, which has kind of started its rebuilding process over the last couple of years. It's the factor that I think in the last year or year and a half, Canada may have become a little bit complacent in terms of thinking that we were the top of the world. And I think that the biggest change that Canada is going to have to undergo is changing its mindset. It is putting in the work and putting in the effort and the training to really get themselves mentally ready to take on these countries that are making huge steps. I mean, you see, obviously, the U.S. won men's and women's last year, but countries like Malaysia and Australia, who have been constantly nipping at everyone's heels, and in 2015 made huge strides and took huge jumps, and now Australia, who is really coming to the forefront, and is going to be hosting in 2016, they're going to have a huge home court advantage. And so it's a matter of gaining, not just from a skill perspective, but from an emotional and a mental perspective, to really take that next step forward. And I think that's my perspective on this.
Well, and both of those teams in Malaysia especially seem to have, sanctions the wrong word, but I can't think of a better one right now. It must have been the gin. Sanction of their government, essentially. Like Malaysia, there was a picture of the Malaysian dodgeball team shaking hands with the Malaysian Prime Minister, and Dodgeball Australia and the team they sent seems to be the country government sanctioned dodgeball team. Like, this is the government sport. So how are you guys in terms of making that push to be the Canadian dodgeball team? Like, what's next for pushing us that way? Just keep on keeping on?
I think, yeah, I think we're going to keep pushing through the work that DC's been doing. It's going to be a slower process. It's going to be a fun process. I think Dave, though, hit a great point in terms of what we need to do. I think the question was what we're going to do to be a powerhouse, and Dave touched it. It's our thinking. And I think, Canada has had tremendous success on the international stage before, and not just from the Team Canada perspective. Anybody who leaves Canada to represent, their club team over the border, overseas, has done a great job. I think it's a change of our thinking. The one thing I said to the ladies last year, and it's something that I preach to every team that I coach, winning at the end of the day for me isn't the goal. Because winning, there's so many intangibles that go into winning that are beyond our control. However, winning is a common fuel that every athlete should have. So anyone who walks into competition with the goal to win, I say good luck to you. It's going to go into the preparation that we're going to do. It's going to go into the strategic thinking that we have for the program this year, and it's going to come down to hard work. And I can promise you that the 2016 Team Canada, they're going to leave it out on the line, and they're going to work for every single game, whether they're up 12-0 or down 6-0. They're going to work hard for every single game they have. And they're going to strive for excellence in everything that they do. And I think that's going to be the real shift and the real difference maker for hopefully our Team Canada programs this year.
And just to touch on the point that Taylor made, that countries like Malaysia and Australia, who seem to have more of a, as she said, sanction, whether it be the right word or not, but government support and more recognition from a legitimized sports level, that starts with the community. And I think that's something that Canada has a huge advantage in, is a massive, strong, tight-knit dodgeball community. And the more that we can show as Dodgeball Canada the size and breadth and scope and scale of this community, is the more firepower we have to legitimize this sport in the government's eyes. And the more support we have from a domestic and national and provincial level, is the more firepower that we can put into building a competitive powerhouse dynasty of a team. So dodgeball community, keep up what you're doing, because you are the foundation that supports everything that Dodgeball Canada and Team Canada does on an international level.
Yeah, and even to touch on that too, and I know we got folks from the West Coast and the East Coast listening, I can tell you that I have heard many people from Ontario this year singing praises of how excited they are to meet you. And I think that at the end of the day is the most important thing, is we're bridging community here. And I know that everyone's excited, including myself, to meet some of you in person. And we're looking forward to building those long-lasting relationships with you over the next several months and years.
And one's going to stay at my house. And again, don't touch my stuff. So we're going to wrap that up as thank you for your patience in listening to us launch our pool draw. If you haven't checked out the Dodgeball Canada Facebook page, please do. All our pools are all posted there. If you have any questions, please post those there, and the Dodgeball Canada committee members will happily answer you. If you just want to tweet Scotch Sporting and just tell us how great we're doing, tweet at Scotch Sporting. Please listen to our podcasts Our other producers in the background face palming really hard right now at that shameless plug. So please listen to Scotch Sporting. Download our podcasts. We yell a lot about sports. I burn my bra all the time. But big ups to Dodgeball Canada, and really excited to see everyone on the 30th. And thank you so much for listening. Tweet us, hashtag us. We will still get to your comments.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.